are back for episode 20 of the Auld Triangle podcast. My name, as always, is Ian O'Neill, and I am joined by my fellow brethren, Andy Stevenson and Caoilte Barra, for this episode. Max Lally will join us a little bit later on. We're going to be here. We're going to talk about Cage Warriors 145. We're going to talk about all the latest news in Irish MMA, some upcoming fights, another jam-packed episode. I'm delighted that you all are here. I'm delighted that you're here, Andy. I'm delighted that you're here, Caoilte. How are the boys? Are the boys well?
Fucking crack is 90.
Crack is 90, as it is. Before we get into Cage Warriors 45, I'm just going to introduce maybe a one-off segment onto the podcast, and I'm going to direct it towards you, Andy Stevenson. And the new segment is called, Are You Actually Irish?
Oh, fuck you. Oh, good. The answer is no. I can already tell I'm going to fail this fucking miserably.
Well, we're going to make it easy for you because, look, this is an Irish MMA podcast. It's solely based around our Irishness and our love for Irish MMA. And I just have to kind of get a bit more further proof that you're worthy of being here with yourself and Caoilte after the travesty.
You're breaking up there, Ian. I can't hear you. What's going on? You're
the travesty that happened on Twitter over the weekend, that you mistakenly named one song incorrectly, and there was calls for you to emigrate, there was calls for your passport, but now, Andy, now is the chance you can redeem yourself.
I don't think I'm gonna.
I am going to ask you 5 questions based
Jesus,
off Ireland, and you'll have to answer them to see if you're actually Irish. So
I'm Googling these.
I'm ready when you are. I know,
Go on, fucking bring it. Come on.
If you don't know honestly, if you don't know the answers to these, you're definitely kicked off the podcast forever.
That's fair enough.
Right.
That's fair enough.
We'll start with an easy one. What is the capital of Ireland? Hint, you live in.
It is Dublin.
Kept us waiting on that one.
Yes.
Kept us waiting on that one. That is correct.
It's not Cork, you fucking boggers. Listen to this. You hear that? It's not fucking Cork.
Question number 2. Name an instrument that would have
Barra.
some... There you go. Didn't even need to finish.
Didn't even
need to finish. Bowron wouldn't have been number 1 on my list, but...
What was the full question? Out of curiosity.
Just an instrument that would be known to be Irish. That's all. There's plenty of them. We give you plenty of them. But number one on my list would obviously be the harp for me. The harp. Have to be the harp. But Bowron just
Playing a harp.
There was no one. There's no one. Whenever you have any of those sing songs in the pub, there's nobody pulling out a harp. There's always a Bowron on the go though. That's how we know. Okay, this one now a little bit more difficult. What years did the War of Independence go from?
Now, in my defense,
you stitched
it. You're already.
War of Independence. See, now the thing is with history is it's written by the victors, so you never really know what the true answer is. 1919 to 1921. That's wrong.
Correct. I'll give you
yes.
I'll give you that.
I dropped out in my defense also. Credit to me. I switched from history to construction studies for the Leaving Cert, so
there you
really
go.
That's extra points.
That knowledge is really on show today with these questions.
Really, that's extra points.
You're doing good. That's 3 out of 3.
I've got a table in my living room though that I made for my project, and it's still going. So
I have a table I had a table. This is a funny story. I did woodwork as well for the Leaving Cert, and I had a table, and it was proudly in the sitting room in my parents' house for as long as I was living there. And I'd say 1 week after I moved out, the table was moved up from the living room into the upstairs bedroom that no one can see it. So I think that tells the story on how nice the table actually was. So credit to the parents there for boosting the ego. Anyway, question 4. Name a staple food in the Irish diet.
If you're talking about Dublin, I would say coddle. Specifically parts of Dublin. Well, but I go with an Irish stew, shepherd's pie,
Spuds
is the answer I'm looking for.
Listen, if you're Will Flurry, it's a fucking shit spud, a plain broccoli, probably a well done steak with curry sauce in it or some shit like that. But
yeah, fair enough.
I prefer a nice pad thai myself.
There you go. You're a man of culture. We always said it. A man of culture. Last question. This is a difficult one, and I'm not sure if you're going to get this, but I'm going to ask it to you anyway. Who sings the Celtic Symphony?
I believe it's Celtic Symphony, but we'll go with...
You're not in a position here to be judging, Andy.
We'll go with... that's the script, isn't it? Yeah.
The
fucking wolf tones. Who would ever get that wrong? It's the wolf tones. And anyone...
First, is that your final answer?
You'd want to fucking submit your passport in if you ever got that wrong. That's all I'll say.
You're lucky, Andy. You're lucky.
That's all I'll say.
You're lucky that you weren't swept up and shipped away.
Does this make me the High King of Ireland? Brian Boru.
I feel a little bit more confident and comfortable with you being a part of the Auld Triangle Irish MMA
really
podcast.
Thought I was going to get every question wrong there, to be honest with you.
No, I could.
I don't even have an Irish name.
We might have to come back here, and we might have to do it all over again sometimes. But we'll see. As soon as you kind of mess up on Twitter again, we might have to revisit. We might have to make it more difficult. But
for anyone who doesn't know what the hell we're talking about, I said that it was the Chieftains on Twitter. And I regret it, okay? Everyone just chill the fuck out and we'll all get on with our lives.
Like I said, Andy, you're not in any position here to be pointing fingers, you know? Well, we had to kick off the podcast. You've got your Irish passport back, you got your Irishness back, and
Beautiful.
You're here on the Auld Triangle for as long as we will be doing it gladly. Someone who didn't lose his Irishness this weekend was Paul Hughes at Cage Warriors 145, came out to the cage with grace beaming through the arena, with the Irish flag hoisted up. That was the big story coming into Cage Warriors 145, and that's the biggest story in Irish MMA right now. The rematch was huge, a huge story, a huge occasion. We built it up, we told the story, but the guys had to go out there and deliver. It was a great night overall for the Irish. I believe everybody picked up the win except Seán and Seán and Paddy McCorry. Yeah, that's totally fine. They took fights at short notice as well, had good performances, which we'll get into. But it's all about Paul Hughes here, guys, going into Cage Warriors and leaving Cage Warriors 145. The pressure, the trials and tribulations that man has had to come through to get to a position where he was even able to kind of fight for a title, number one, let alone, unify it against another top fighter in Jordan Vucenic. But both he and Jordan went out there and put on a great fight. But in particular, Paul just pulled away around midway through the fight and absolutely asserted his dominance in the featherweight division. And the fight itself was brilliant. The performance was brilliant. His reaction after the fact was brilliant. And it's got to be the UFC next for Paul Hughes, without a doubt. We'll talk about the fight first. We'll talk about what's next. Andy, it was a really, truly great performance by Paul. I'll take you guys through a little brief summary of the fight. Obviously, round one, very, very close. They both traded on the feet. Hughes's body work was on show early in the fight, and it worked tremendously well throughout the fight for him in opening up other opportunities. Rounds one, rounds two were pretty close. There was a big head kick from Hughes, which forced a takedown attempt from Vucenic. Hughes went to reverse that in round two, took the body triangle and had the back and was threatening for a rear naked choke, kind of controlled round two. It was an even enough start at the start of round three. An accidental head clash separated the clinch. Mark Goddard separated both guys. Vucenic landed some good shots on the break. It was a big left hook and some nice jabs. And Vucenic was hurt. It was a 1-2 and a left hook and I believe a knee through the middle that opened up a big on Jordan. And that was really the changing of the guard on the fight. That was the turning point. After that, Hughes came out round four, hurt Vucenic again. It was the left hook that opened up that cut more. It opened up some more cuts with some ground and pound. Paul ended up in the back in that kind of back control position with the body triangle for the majority of round four as well. Round five came out, hurt Jordan again, chose to follow him down. I feel, maybe if he had a choice to stay on the feet, I think he might have got Vucenic out of there in round five, but he chose to follow him down, absolutely dominated with ground and pound. Jordan Vucenic was battered, bruised and cut. It was a tremendous performance, a dominating performance from Paul Hughes, and all credit to him. Tremendous performance. UFC next, there has to be. Andy, I'm going to get your thoughts overall on the fight itself before we talk about what's next.
Yeah, firstly, I 100% agree. UFC next, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But it was the best performance of Paul Hughes' career. I was so impressed by him. I thought that Vucenic started quick. Like, Vucenic looked so fast. I thought he had the edge in the speed department in round one. But Hughes' ability to just stay patient and grow into fights is fantastic. He really looks like both fighters have improved. Like, I thought they both looked slicker than their last fight. But Paul has it all. Like, I just see a completely well-rounded fighter. He can grapple, he can strike, he can trade in the pocket. He's not afraid, he's comfortable in every area. Joe McColgan talked to us before the fight. He said that, like, one of his greatest strengths is his ability to just stay composed and calm in the flow. So when you're in those transition periods, it's like he's not expending any energy. And I feel that we saw as the fight went on, he just slowly up to the gear and started taking over. And from as you said, once that he landed that, it was what I love is when he throws those hooks to the body and then finishes up top. They're money.
I would love to ask him if this was the game plan going in, because you watched that fight back. It was that left hook to the body that was opening up everything for Paul Hughes. It was beautiful, and he was throwing it from the very start of the fight. It was that body shot which was opening up the left hook to the head. It was opening up. It was beautiful setup. That was the key to, in my opinion, to Paul Hughes' attack on the feet, was that left hook to the body. It was just opening up everything. It was taking the gas tank away from Jordan. It was keeping Jordan guessing on the feet. It got to a stage where Jordan was shooting for a takedown. The fight kind of shaped up in the early stages similar enough to their first fight, to be honest, where it was nip and tuck. And, we had Hughes kind of get the momentum. We had Vucenic get the momentum back. And I was kind of looking at it even through round 3 as well. And, like, you're kind of waiting with that expectation of Jordan to kind of make that comeback and for that momentum change to come back in Jordan's favour. But Paul Hughes didn't allow it to happen. He did
just
not
put the foot in the gas, didn't he? Like, it was so impressive. Like, he beat the brakes off him from rounds 4 and 5. It was,
and he didn't just beat the brakes off with all due respect to Jordan. He didn't just beat any normal guy. Jordan Vucenic is a serious prospect and UFC ready at this stage too. That's what I said after the fight. Send both of these guys to the UFC. They both deserve to be in there. They both deserve to be there. And I just think to beat a guy the way Paul did it of that caliber, I think it just makes it a hell of a lot more impressive for me.
And Vucenic was still, like, I don't know how he was still throwing, but, like,
crazy.
He's such a talented competitor, and it's a crying shame, as you say, it's a crying shame that someone had to lose here. And you could see in the way Paul was emotional, and he couldn't even celebrate. And I thought it was a beautiful post-fight interview he did with Edith LaBelle, where he was like, I love this guy. Like, he was close to tears because he was taking away a guy's dream. And it's easy to forget as well, like, these guys are getting paid 1,500 quid or $2,000 max for the damage that they're taking. And I know it's to to chase that dream. And for now, Paul will probably go on to the UFC, but for a guy like Jordan Vucenic, who's got a young family and he deserves to be there already, like, that's to go through that war and get paid fuck all is it's hard to think about.
Well, that's the stark reality of the situations here as well, is that guys are chasing their dreams. And we'll talk to Max a little bit later on, and he gives his opinion on why he does it. And a lot of these guys do it for the love of it, where they're not thinking about it financially. But my opinion on that is that you put that Paul Hughes and Vucenic fight on any UFC card, and it's not going to look out of place. And it's unfortunate these guys aren't getting paid, but you know what, now is the time where they should be getting paid, and they're moving on to the next step. And I really hope that Paul, or that Jordan doesn't have to go through the ropes again at Cage Warriors, because I do truly feel that he's ready to make that next step now, and I hope that it happens for him. And
wouldn't look out of place at all.
Not at all. I mean, I'm sure you agree, Caoilte. It's about both of these guys, but of course we're going to focus on Paul being an Irish podcast. But they're definitely, both of these guys are UFC ready. With the pressure on each one of their shoulders, the expectation that was coming in from the media and from the fans as well, and both of them stepped up and delivered. And unfortunately, like Andy said, only one guy can prevail on the night, and this time around it was Paul. But you know, max respect to both guys, really.
Yeah, completely. And like, honestly, before this fight was even booked, I thought Jordan Vucenic was going to get the call up. Wholeheartedly believed that he earned it and was going to get the call up. All that was left was the Paul Hughes fight, because there was question marks around it, and we got that answered last night. And now Paul gets to go on, and I guess it's easy to forget about the loser in that situation, because you don't know what's going to happen with them. Are they going to keep fighting for pennies? And when they have the respect for each other as well, they knew one person's going to get the dream and the other person's not going to. It's crazy, really. So I think Jordan Vucenic, agree with you guys, deserves UFC. If not, a contender series shot, because like, you don't want him fighting for nothing, you know, on Cage Warriors. If a fight like that was in the UFC, they'd have 50k each. You know, that's the kind of the annoying side of it. But and you'd hope they were looked after in different ways. But who knows? But for the front, on a performance perspective, like, Jesus, Paul was outstanding, and he, you know, I think, what was it, from round 3 onwards, he just, you know, took over, and the toughness of Jordan Vucenic was just insane to keep in there. The heart, everything. It was a massive fight from start to finish. It had big fight feels from the walkouts, albeit they did take about an hour. But
yeah, we have to mention the walkouts took forever. It was crazy. And then there was a couple of long ones in the UFC. I was like, is this a new trend in MMA now? But you know, you have to give them credit.
It kind of added to it kind of spoke to the grandiosity of it.
A little bit. I thought it probably went a little longer than it should have, but you know what? The walkouts proved, and I tweeted this out, it was like the two boys were going for a walk down the park. So it was walking out. They were taking everything in. They were soaking in the atmosphere. They were enjoying it, and good for them. They deserve to do that. You know, you live for those moments, and you can't just simply let those moments pass you by. But like, it's
interesting though, because like, they look so calm, but then Paul says afterwards, he goes, I was shitting myself at this fight. This is the most terrified I've ever been in my life for a fight. And then that's just something I cannot comprehend, to then walk out. And I don't think he's faking it. I think it's just like, he's in his element. He's soaking in every second, every millisecond. You know, they took forever to get to the cage, because
you talk about someone like Paul who you know, has spoken himself about visualization. Okay. And, you know, a visualization is a huge part in kind of foreseeing what way fights go, what way. And I can imagine that moment for Paul Hughes was going through his head for so many fucking years. It was going through his head when he was out with his hand injuries. It was going through his head when he was forced to pull out from the Cage Warriors Belfast card, which must have been so hard for him to do as well. And what we seen was that release. And, you know, he was a man who was walking out to his destiny, really, on Friday night. And he was soaking it all in. And it was great to see, because, you know, everything can happen in MMA, but when you're out there, when you're walking out, there's nothing else to do. You're walking out there and you're fighting. This is what you're here for. This is what you're putting yourself on earth for. And, you know, I was delighted to see him kind of take it all in. Didn't even know what he said after, and I can imagine nerves were. Didn't let it show, nor did Jordan, but I can guarantee you both of those guys were under immense pressure. And it didn't affect either one of their performances either, because they went out there and performed tremendously well and put on a fucking unbelievable fight. And, you know,
they're just both so good. Like,
yeah,
I almost forget that it went to decision. Like, it was, because I really feel that, like, there's no questions anymore. It's like Paul put such a stamp on it with those last couple of rounds that I find myself forgetting. I'm like, oh yeah, Paul finished him. I was like, no, he didn't. It went to a decision. Like, it was a dominant decision in the end. But he put such a stamp on it that there's no questions right now. He is the king of the 145 pounders in Cage Wars, arguably in Europe. And I hate myself for doing this, because it doesn't need to be done. But when I think Paul Hughes is the best active Irish fighter right now. I would have previously ranked Ian Garry ahead of him. I would have Paul Hughes ahead of Ian Garry at the moment. And there's no, I shouldn't be comparing, because there's no need to, but I can't help but not, or I can't help but he looks so good. He's so well rounded. I just can't wait for to see what's next for him.
It's a fair assessment, and it's solely based off opinion, and you have every right to think that. I mean,
yeah, of course, yeah. I might change my mind tomorrow. Like,
that's it. It's like recency bias could kind of come into it too. We haven't seen Ian in a while, but one thing I definitely will agree with you on is that I would go as far as to say that was the best performance of Paul Hughes's career at the biggest moment in his career, and that stands to a testament of his mentality, which cannot be unquestioned anyway, given some of the hardships that he's had to go through to get into that position. And the future is so bright for Paul Hughes. I'm very excited to see what the next step is. It's got to be UFC.
I think we know, yeah.
It's got to be.
Credit to Pat McAllister and Liam Shannon as well to have in the space of 18 months. I know previously won the interim title, but now the official title. Joe McColgan and Paul Hughes champions in the space of 18 months is something to be proud of.
Not to be snuffed at, for sure. Not to be snuffed at. We will move on to the co-main event. James Sheehan versus Jamie Richardson in the welterweight division, and it was a close fight, guys. We talked to Jimbo on the last episode of the Auld Triangle. He was excited at the challenge. Jamie went in there, Caoilte, and he was, his before we were saying it was going to be James's toughest test on paper in Jamie Richardson, and the fight just proved that way as well, didn't it? Really, overall, it was a tough contest and a very close battle.
Yeah, for sure. Like, honestly, when it went to the decision, I hadn't a clue how to score. I wasn't actively trying to score it. I just remember looking at it and thinking, Jesus Christ, I don't know who won this. But I would have probably leaned towards James, but there could be the Irish bias there. He he was very composed throughout that entire performance. I found, like, it wasn't made easy for him, especially in the second round. And I think the third round was the one that really put the stamp on it for Sheehan. Like, I think there was that. I loved it. The moment he had the hand pinned down in the back, or as Andy was like, it's trapped, as Andy said.
I was given the play-by-play in the Severe MMA WhatsApp group. They're like, Ian's like, yeah, we can actually see what's going on in the. We are watching the fight.
So, like,
it's trapped. It's still trapped.
So was that the start? It's a trap.
The old Dublin Dagestani handcuff. We'll call it the Dublin handcuff for James. I mean, looking back on the fight, I thought, round one was very, very close. I did think that James just got off the best kind of shots in that round and probably snuck that on the scorecard. I think round two was a Richardson round. I think that he got off the better shots there. And, you're talking about growth in fighters, and James is talking about growing as a fighter. Well, he proved that growth going into round three because, he had to get the sense that he probably dropped round two. That you're going into round three. That you need to change it up. And that's what James Sheehan did. He went in there, got the takedown, secured that arm behind the back, got some, Jesus Christ, those shots to the liver, man. Those
were horrible.
Those were vicious.
Fuck that. I'd take a kiss off James any day instead.
That's the only thing. That's the only thing that was missing. James would probably say the only other thing that was missing was a finish, but the only other thing was the kiss of death. We didn't get to see it this time, but there's.
Well, you never know. It takes a few months. It takes a few slow-mos.
Exactly.
Probably in there somewhere. It's an Easter egg.
It was a great performance by James overall. Look at, he didn't look all too pleased in the immediate aftermath of the fight, but looking back on that, there's plenty of positives to take from that, isn't there, Andy? When James will look back on it, win over a decent opposition, most experienced opponent, and you know what? While it was a close fight, James Sheehan never really looked in too much trouble during the duration of it.
Yeah, definitely. Like, James comes across, even from when we've spoken to him as well, he just seems like a very sensible guy with a good head and his shoulders, and I feel like it's kind of transcending into his fighting, where it was a close round one, but I also thought I thought it was a clear 10-9 to James. It wasn't, an overwhelming one, but I thought James won 10-9. I thought I gave Richardson the second, and it seemed that Richardson was growing into the fight on the feet and having a lot more success and landing the flusher shots in the striking exchanges. So to have the kind of the wherewithal to going into round three being like, okay, maybe the balance is kind of shifting here on the feet, so why don't I just take it to the ground? And he set it up beautifully. He was very composed. He set it up with a nice combo up against the cage, and then level changed, got the fight to the ground, and from there, as you said, he got the Dublin handcuff, and just started ripping those body shots. And the fight was essentially won in that takedown. Not that the takedown won the fight. Let's not confuse that, but it was from there he was able to do his best work of the fight. And yeah, just a really composed. Not every fight has to be a big finish. Sometimes it's getting a solid win, overcoming adversity, and beating a former title contender in Jamie Richardson. And James doesn't seem to be in any rush, so this is another next step along the way, and he's on the right path. So yeah, it's all good from James, really.
Yeah, and just to maybe kind of double down on what I said earlier is like everything that you said in progression, but I feel what separates elite level fighters from a lot of other fighters is that in-fight awareness, that fight IQ, and your ability to switch up your game plan when you need to do it. And I think that James did all of that as well and showed all of that, and all very promising signs. Caoilte, if I was to give you a blank canvas now and you had the chance to give James Sheehan his next opponent, who would you like to see him in there with?
Fuck, I'd give him a title shot. He's probably one away from a title shot, to be honest with you. Do you know what though? I'm wrong about tests. Jimmy Wallhead isn't fighting for the belt, is he? No. So, I know he's the fight lined up. I think regardless of the result, I think Jimmy Wallhead would be a great fight.
Yeah.
Jimmy Wallhead's fighting for the interim belt, right? Against
is it? Fuck it.
Yeah.
Bollocks. Yeah, Jimmy Wallhead. I love that.
You could get the loser of that fight perhaps if you wanted, but I wouldn't mind seeing him in there against Matters Feminas eventually, whether it's his next fight or the fight after. Like James said it himself, he's not in any rush to get to the title, so there's plenty of good tests there for him.
Didn't Madras actually say that online before? I think one of he put it up, and Madras actually replied saying, he goes, he'd deal with his last opponent, and then that would be a great scrap. Good test too.
I'd like that. What about you, Andy? How are you feeling about it all?
Yeah, I could go for it. There's so many, because I feel like there's no clear next fight for James. Like, you could go the Matters Feminas, you could pair him up with Oban Elliott. We did a little Twitter Spaces after, and we were kind of discussing this directly after the fight. And you probably don't want to do that if you're Ian Dean or the matchmakers, because one of them has to lose, but that'd be a great fight.
I mean, Sean Sheehan was calling for that on the big podcast. I don't hate that fight either. I mean, I know the only kind of disadvantage is that you're killing two prospects in the division, but you know what, Cage Warriors is a fucking fight.
It's kind of Cage Warriors, isn't it?
It's a fight league of prospects, so
but that welterweight division is so stacked that you're gonna have to put them against each other at some stage. Like, there's so many games in there. We
can't forget Reece McKee is still in the mix there now officially as well. So
someone said Justin Burlinson the other day as well. Like, that could be. Yes. I don't know how long he's out for, but that'd be a great fight.
It would. It's something along those lines. This was a step up in Jamie Richardson. It was taking that next step, I think, is what we're looking for James as well. So it'll be exciting to kind of see what's next for him. The next person I'd like to talk about who is someone who's put himself right into the title mix as well, and I think we have to mention this Caolan Loughran. And before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty of the fight itself, I just want to say, this is a relatively big story in Irish MMA, in my opinion, the journey that Caolan Loughran has been on in the last year, because let's be real and let's be honest around the situation. When he came onto the Cage Warriors scene, everybody was trying to tear him down. Everyone was belittling his level of competition. Everyone was belittling his skill set, and people were actively doing it on social media as well, which I found a little bit peculiar. But you know what? Ain't nobody fucking doing it anymore, because he's come in and he's picked up 3 solid wins in Cage Warriors. He's beaten the number 1 rated bantamweight in the UK and Ireland in Luke Shanks on Friday night. And I mean, there's going to be no doubters after this. Caolan Loughran is truly on the scene, from laughing stock into title contender in the space of 3 fights. And that's the reality of the situation there. And I, for one, I was very happy to see him go in there and prove that he is a top prospect, and one that we need to be keeping an eye on in Irish MMA right now, for sure. Andy, what is your overall assessment on Caolan, the performance, and what did you think of it overall, I guess?
Yeah, I completely agree with you what you just said there. Caolan Loughran talks the talk and he walks the walk, and we've always known that he talks the talk, but now we truly know that he walks the walk. Luke Shanks is a huge name to have a win over in Cage Warriors. Like, he's a former champion. He's a guy who not so long ago finished the flyweight champion, and it was only didn't have a belt because he missed weight. You know, he struggled with making weight at 125, so he had to move up. But I mean, to get that win, and the way he did it was dominant. It was dominant. Like, it wasn't like it was, the first round wasn't close once he got the back. Like, he was to an extent playing with Shanks towards the end of that round, and then go out there and get the finish via strikes. That's huge. And I think I was hesitant to call for a title shot immediately. Like, I think he's a title he's a title what am I looking for, he's the caliber, he's a title contender caliber. But I didn't know if it would be next because, you know, maybe there's a Nathan Fletcher or whoever else around. But I think he's actually earned it. I think he should go in straight ahead. Nathan Fletcher's already fought for a title. He hasn't been active through no fault of his own. He's been struggling to get matchups. But at the end of the day, you keep winning, you stay active, then you jump the queue. And I think that Caolan Loughran should be fighting for the title next. We've seen, you know, obviously Dominique Wooden lost his title to Michel Martignoni, but Dominique Wooden's gone now. He's gone to the PFL. So there you go. There's your next title contender. He can talk. He'll tell you what, that the build-up would be great crack. And he deserves some respect, because you're dead right. The amount of people who get onto me about this guy, and it's unfounded at this point. You cannot use whatever you want to say anymore. You just can't. He's proven himself, and you know, he's got more proving to do along the way as the steps go up. We don't know just how good he is yet, but he's certainly ready for a Cage Warriors title shot, I'll tell you that much, and I won't be doubting him.
That's what he wants. That's what he's calling for. He called for it after the fight, Caoilte. You know, I would have to agree. I was calling for it after the fight as well. I think, why not throw him in there? Just why not give him a crack? If he wins, fair play. He says he wants to win it and defend the title loads of times. If he loses, it's back to the drawing board. No shame in losing the Cage Warriors title fight either. What would you like to see next for Caolan, and how impressed were you by his overall performance, Caoilte?
Yeah, so, well, in terms of what I want to see next is title shots straight up. I think the only other person that I kind of even want to see him compete against would be Nathan Fletcher, who I think Andy's already given the spiel about him, really. So, yeah, I think there's nothing left but a title shot, in my opinion. He's 3-0 Cage Warriors, all second round finishes. It's hard to argue how good he's been, and hard to argue against a title shot, to be honest with you, in my opinion. And he'll sell it. That make it even better. You know, you got to get someone who's going to make it interesting, and you know too well he's going to go in there and he'll make it interesting before the fight, during the fight, and probably afterwards too. But yeah, I was actually really surprised by one or two things. I knew he was good. I think his striking, we got to see the power that he has. He dropped Luke Shanks with a lovely right hand in the opening round, I believe.
Yeah, and that hurt him twice. It hurt him twice early for sure. Yeah, which showed good power.
Yeah, I didn't really know much about his striking, or hadn't seen too much of it against someone like a kind of a higher level opponent, and it was nice to see that come out. And then the grappling, wow, you can see that wrestling that he's doing over the Grundys and Team Caoban is really paying off, because it was exceptional. The transitions were just like seamless. He was one step ahead of Luke Shanks at all times, in my opinion, when it came to the grappling. I think there was one point he got caught, was it a guillotine? And that was the only moment, but he was calm, collected. He got out of that and onwards to victory. It was fantastic, and it was a real good performance. He shut up all the haters, in my opinion, and fair play to him for doing so. Yeah,
like, I think, you know, let's talk about the performance itself as well, because, you know, we've not seen him under pressure inside the Cage Warriors cage at all yet, to be honest. You know, obviously that guillotine was close, but I think he said himself he was in full control, not in too much danger. There's no doubt it was tight, but I couldn't say
there was no panic there.
Yeah, I couldn't say it came close to finishing or anything like that.
Yeah, I think the commentators were at one point were like, "Oh, his face is gone a little bit red." Was it that fight? I think they're saying that.
And of course it is. Your neck is getting squeezed like fucking. You're going to be a little red in the head. like, I think, if we were dealing with a scenario here where Caolan went in and fought a really close fight with Luke Shanks and ended up taking a decision home, we'd be still waxing lyrical about him here now, but impressive. But the fact that he's going in there, he's not looking under any pressure at all. He's not looking tired at all, and he's completely dominating these guys and kind of more or so coming out of these fights unscathed as well. I think that can't be snuffed at either. It's not just getting the wins, it's the manner that he's getting these wins, and he's getting these guys out of there as well. And you just cannot deny that, and you cannot deny the level of skill anymore. And rather than begrudge it, it's time to get aboard the ship and enjoy the ride. And let's see where Caolan takes us and takes himself, because he's got a bright future one way or another, and I'm excited to see it happen.
You could see him going into an event in Italy, couldn't you? Going into Martignoni's backyard and causing chaos.
You could do it over in Italy. It was a fantastic atmosphere over there. Why not fucking bring it back to Belfast? Let's bring it back to Ireland, man. And imagine doing that. It would be unreal. It'd be unbelievable. But yeah,
Cage Warriors really should be. They should be like, come on, like it's. I know we had Belfast last year, but back when the Cork event happened in 2019, all the talk was there's going to be 3 events, 4 events, and I know, of course, COVID happened, so you cut them some slack there. But I think it's time for a couple more events in Ireland now.
Seems like a missed opportunity. Yeah, it seems like a missed opportunity that this event itself didn't happen in Ireland at the very least. I don't know what's going on. You could throw it down in Cork. Is it a kind of an issue in putting fights on down the south? We have, it's not easy.
But even Belfast, just I mean, a lot of the fighters are from that area, 100%, so
100%. I couldn't agree more.
Reece McKee title defense.
Absolutely. We shall move on to the next one. Let's talk about the Shelley brothers next. I thought the both of them had excellent performances in their own right. Let's talk about Adam first, who went in against El Hadji Di. In the first fight of the night, it's a lot of pressure on Adam. Andy coming into that one, I guess, with Ryan fighting later on tonight, they've spoke about it to you and to me before, it adds that extra bit of pressure. But I think for Adam, it was getting in there and securing that win, and he managed to do that. It showed some. I thought Adam looked excellent when he fought at range against Ndai, where he was able to get off his jabs and fight at that kind of comfortable distance on the feet. Ndai kind of tried to close the distance, and I thought Adam did kind of get caught up too much in the grappling exchanges for my liking. It's easy for me to say. I thought that, Adam got back to that kind of distance, kind of striking battle in round 3, and it stood to him very well, where, he was landing his jab at will, landing other shots at will, and forcing the shot from Ndai as well. And, it was a good performance, and it was great to see him back in the win column.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was all about, I think, for me, the real pressure here was you're coming off a knockout loss, or we're standing TKO, but it was a pretty brutal stoppage. Last time out against James Power, got overwhelmed with the power. But to come back in here, yeah, I thought it was a solid performance. And Dai, he had success in getting the fight to the ground at times, but just didn't seem to be able to mount any sort of offense once he got it there. So, as you said, once Adam was kind of striking at range, and that's his bread and butter. Like, he's a Taekwondo world champion multiple times, so you kind of expect that. But yeah, like a solid one to get back in the win column. I think you want to. Adam's spoken before about wanting to kind of, he's, I can't remember how, maybe 28 or something, like he's veering towards 30, and he wants to hit the ground running in Cage Warriors. I don't think he necessarily needs to do that. I think just, take it step by step here, and add to your game, because you're going to come up against, more significant tests than in Dai. But it was a solid win, a solid performance, and, clear 3 rounds to 0. So yeah, a solid back into the win column for Adam Shelley. And if we're going to talk about Ryan Shelley, Ryan Shelley impressed me more, I will say that. That's a huge way. That's a huge statement to get a big win. I'm maybe I'm jumping the gun, moving us along here, but that's a huge win over Josh Reed to finish a guy like that inside a round. I'm really impressed by that.
Talk to me about that fight and Ryan's performance in particular, Caoilte. I mean, really solid, just showcasing that overall ability, well-roundedness as well. And look, we've seen him taking the backs before, and we've seen him taking necks, and he did exactly that in this fight. It was really excellent, and to do it against a guy like Josh Reed is not to be snuffed at either.
No, not at all. Like, obviously we would have known the Shelley brothers from their Taekwondo background, but my God, has he, like, just looked so good in the grappling, and he got he looked, when he got the back and he got the choke in, he was just absolutely sensational. It was sorry, I'm after losing all my notes that I had written for this, lads. I had them all written out, but like from what I remember, when he got the back, it was you could see it was the beginning, the end, how patient he was, how like it was phenomenal. Really, it was a good performance from him, and yeah, look, I all the stuff I'd written down to say, I forgot.
Yeah, like Reed came out real quick. Like Reed swarmed him from the start, put the pressure on, but essentially Ryan stayed composed and then used his counter wrestling, got it to the ground, got into mount, I think, at
excellent
one point.
Use. I love the use of the whizzer from both Adam and from Ryan as well, and their takedown defenses come on leaps and bounds, both of them. Josh Reed did what you expect a guy like Josh Reed to do, was come on. He's the experienced guy. He's been in there. You come and you put pressure on your opponent straight away, try and get him on the back foot. I guess Josh Reed didn't want to be in a position that Andaye was, where he was going to be at the end of Ryan's strikes, or he didn't want to allow him probably to gauge that distance on the feet. And he did excellently to do it. But what he wasn't anticipating was the level of expertise that Ryan showed on the ground, and securing position, securing the back, and ultimately getting the choke. I mean, was absolutely brilliant. Ryan Shelley moves to 6-0, and I think, the world is his oyster now in the lightweight division. Things are shaping up there.
Featherweight division. Or
featherweight, excuse me. You've got to be including him in the title mix within a couple of fights now. If not a number one contendership fight next, you got to be putting him in there with a big name. Who would you like to see, Andy?
Harry Hardwick. Give me that fight. Harry Hardwick, Ryan Shelley. That's a fight. That's a fight. And Harry Hardwick had a fantastic. I know we're an Irish MMA podcast. I loved Harry Hardwick's performance.
Great performance, brilliant.
Yeah, and it's so fun to watch. Yeah, like they were kind of they weren't happy with him, but I kind of liked it because it's not like he was standing there not landing it. He was fucking battering.
Maybe a bit. Maybe did once or twice too many.
Fair enough.
I mean, when you're putting your hands behind your back, when you have your guy rattled against the cage, same time putting your hands behind your back and go and finish him. But
he landed one lovely shot from it, though.
It was fun.
Them striking, like Ryan Shelley striking with Harry Hardwick, could be great crack.
It'd be brilliant. Yeah, it'd be interesting fight. It'd be interesting to see what's next. For both the Shelley brothers, to be honest. But Ryan, moving in at 6-0, he's coming into the business end of things now, like Andy said, in the featherweight division. And it's going to be exciting to see lots of positive storylines coming from Cage Warriors. Unfortunately, there's some negative ones as well, as we talked about. Paddy McCorry went in there at short notice against James Webb and came out the wrong side of a decision. It was an interesting fight, Caoilte, because I thought, James Webb looked the bigger, more powerful, stronger guy in there. I was blown away by James's size in there. He looked huge, looked strong in the grappling exchanges as well. And that kind of showed in rounds 1 or rounds 2. But round three, Paddy McCorry came out. He knew he had to kind of go out there and manifest the finish. And he almost got it done, Caoilte, didn't he? He made the fight very exciting towards the end. And, James Webb was somewhat in survival mode at stages of round 3 as well, and did well to recover ultimately to get the win.
Yeah, I think in that third round, the veteran side of James Webb really showed. It's like, because I thought he was really hurt. I think it was that flying knee, wasn't it? That it was incredible. I thought he had him, honestly, at one point. But the kind of veteran came out but James Webb, it's a really good performance. First 2 rounds are really good. He came out a bit more aggressive than usual, I thought. And I liked it from him. I did like it. And his grappling showed he was very patient, took the back early, hit that position. It was that he was really what Webb did in particular, I really liked. He did it, and he did it constantly. He got Paddy up against the cage, got the back from there, took him down, and had it. And I liked it. He was really good. Didn't look like he was wasting that much energy, but he did look tired in the third round, I will admit. And I like that from him. He made it difficult. He didn't make it easy for Paddy one bit, and he made it his fight. That's what James did. But you know what? All the respect to Paddy, as I'm trying to say. He was, he went in. He survived those 2 rounds that were tough, where there was times he could have been finished. But in that third round, he came out and he knew he needed to finish to win. And he put it all on the line, and he just, it is what it is. He didn't get it. He came up short. He lost the decision, but my God, he was so close at times, and that would have been a huge scalp if he got it.
It would have, for sure. And, credit to James for taking it as well, because, on paper, it looked like it was a bit of a mismatch, but it definitely wasn't from a skills standpoint, at the very least, Andy. And, the experience for James really showed overall, I think, and especially in round 3 for him to kind of pull through and get the win. And it was a really big win for James Webb as well, especially after coming back from those 2 losses. And, he needed that win there. He didn't have to take the fight, took the risk, but the risk paid off. And, it's on to the next one for him now.
Yeah, it was a much needed win from James Webb, considering that he's coming off 2 back-to-back stoppage losses. Like this, he's trying to reinvent his career essentially here, and as you said, it was his experience that won him the fight in the end. He obviously won the first 2 rounds, but yeah, my God, Paddy McCorry came close. Like this was this was by no means a mismatch at all. Like not even just the flying knee. Like he had Webb down, he was landing some serious elbows, a lot of shots, and I thought that he was about to get the finish at one point, and Webb just he hung on, he stayed in there, and as you said, he started to use his grappling again, and once he was able to get it to the cage, like that's the first 2 rounds were kind of just a classic James Webb fight where he's a lot of cage work, imposing his will, and just nullifying his opponent's offense essentially. But it's also the type of fight that Paddy McCorry comes away with his stock risen for me, to go in there in your cage war his debut on short notice against a former champion. And had we seen a 3rd round that looked similar to the first 2, we might have said, yeah, maybe not the greatest decision, but to show what he showed in round 3, that's huge, and I think we'll probably see big things from him in the future. It'll be very interesting to see how Paddy McCorry, I would sincerely hope that Cage Warriors offer him a multi-fight contract, because they should. He's someone that you want in your middleweight division, absolutely. So looking forward to it's one of those, in a way, when we're looking at it from 2 guys involved in Irish MMA, you don't want either to lose. In a way, the loss isn't even really, the loss doesn't really matter for Paddy McCorry here, I don't think, because of what he showed in there and against who it was, and it was a much needed win for James Webb. So look, yeah, be very interested to see what happens, and you never know, we could see them run it back at some point in the future.
It'd be interesting to find out, and I think, to go on to the last fight we're going to talk about, and that's Oban Elliott versus Seán McCormac. I think the same sentiments as well will go to Seán McCormac as well, who took this fight at short notice against a really, really good fighter in Oban Elliott. Like I fancy Oban I feel that he's a UFC quality fighter. I think that, I think we probably would see him in the UFC if things go his way down the line. And Seán McCormac went in there and was competitive, not an easy fight to take at that early stage of your career, but, had some good spells as well. Ultimately didn't get the result he was looking for, but, for taking the fight alone, and for providing that opportunity as well to Oban, he deserves another crack in there as well. And hopefully that he gets it as well. Any takeaways from Seán McCormac's performance, lads, before we move on to the interview?
Not really, but to be honest, yeah, like, with the Paddy and the Seán, they both obviously deserve it, but it's kind of just, it gives even more reason for them to come back, or just to go to Belfast and put on another card, because you see how, like, they're willing to step in and they're always putting on good fights. It's a no-brainer really, like, so it's Cage Warriors, got to come back, lads. Yeah,
like it's refreshing. We're seeing, I kind of talked about this. We're seeing a lot of fighters with uncompetitive matchups lately. These guys are taking on serious challenges, like to go in and Oban Elliott is a very solid fighter who's he's young, but he's very experienced in cage wars. He's already had his losses in there and he's grown from them and come back and having success and evolved, and to go in short notice is a massive respect. And in the first round I thought Seán McCormac had some success as well. He landed some nice teeps to the body. It wasn't all one-way traffic, so he gave a good account for himself, but at the end of the day it was a comprehensive win for Oban Elliott. I thought he did the better work, but yeah, look, let's see what's next for Seán McCormac, and I would very much expect to see him back in there not too far away.
Onwards and upwards, as we say, and we shall move on to our interview with Max Lally, who is returning back off of a big shoulder injury. He is going to be competing against Armin Herzeg at Cage Warriors 18 next month. We decided to have Max on just for a chat about his injury recovery, where he sees his career going, and a bunch of other things. It was great to have Max on. I'm going to send it over to Caoilte to take that away.
And now we're joined by one of the top amateurs in Ireland, Max Lally. Max, it's been a long time since we've seen you in the cage. How are you getting on today?
Getting on great. Looking forward to getting back and competing.
You were on with us beforehand there, like before we went live, and the smile in your face, and it's still there. You must be buzzing to get back in the cage.
It's just it's a feeling that I think only MMA fighters will understand when I say that the preparation week leading up to the fight, I've missed it terrible. Even cutting weight, I've missed it terrible, and it's just being taken away from me now. I finally have it back. It's just in reach and grasp now. So it's just about getting to this fight now in 4 weeks' time at full health and just putting on a performance.
And like going back to the injury, like we haven't seen you since January, and I remember speaking to you afterwards at the World Championships. The disappointment was real. Like, can you talk me through that injury a little bit and what exactly happened in that fight with the lad from Mongolia? I can't remember his name.
Yeah. So what happened was, and this is actually has been going back, I'm gonna say September-ish. This shoulder, my left shoulder, had been irritating me, not stopping me from training and not stopping me from fighting, but it was a little niggle. Now at the time, I was very kind of thinking very black and white. It must be something muscular or something like that, and I'd get massages and I'd get a dry needle out and stuff, and the issue never 100% went away, but I just kind of chose to ignore it. It really affected me in my fight against Magazurabov on Euro Fighting Championships. I think that's when I really kind of started to okay, I think there might be something wrong with my shoulder. So when I kind of took that into account, I remember I was saying it to Sergey. I was like, listen, I think there's something really wrong with my shoulder. So we'd cup it every Friday and stuff like that. And I said, we'll fight in December. And when we fight in December, we'll get it sorted out then. We fought Alex Connolly in December, defending my super lightweight title. And by chance, the IMAFs came up. And it was just that continuously. So it was me, I was like, if it makes sense, I'm so in love with fighting and addicted to doing it. It's like you're asking an addict to stop doing something. He's not going to stop doing it, So me, stupidly went to the IMAFs, and even over that was a really tough camp. I got COVID 3 weeks out. I was wondering, I was worried about not being able to go over to Abu Dhabi in case I'd get a positive COVID test. I ended up testing negative. And all throughout this, I'm still making weight. I'm fighting 70 kilo same day. I go over to Abu Dhabi. I win my first fight. I felt great in my first fight. Felt like I put on a really good performance. And then in my second fight, I got to drop my phone there, lads. But then in my second fight, in the first, I think, 45 seconds, I got taken down by a really good Mongolian kid. Really gave me a tough fight. But I ended up running up the cage. And when I run up the cage, whatever way I ran up the cage, it was like my arm got caught in the same position, and I just felt a complete tear, and my whole left arm felt like it was covered in cement. It was just froze stiff and had no power in it at all. And I think that is the most pain I've ever felt, and I've had a lot of injuries, doing the sport a long time. It's the most pain I've ever felt in my life. But with the adrenaline, when you're in a fight and you feel something, your adrenaline is sky high, so it's when you feel something in a fight, that's how you know it's okay, this is sore, there's something very wrong here. I remember going back to Sergey and Kieran Dabrin as well. Was in the corner, I went back in the first round, I said, here, my shoulder's gone, 100% is gone. Sergey was trying to massage it, and I think he might have popped it back into place, because in the second round it did feel a bit better. I did enough to get the decision win, but I had to go to the hospital straight away after the fight. Got the shoulder x-rayed and stuff, nothing came up, so I knew it was something to do with ligament or something like that. I was heartbroken. I really felt like I could have gotten that podium, if not got a gold medal. And that's something I've been sitting with for a long time,
And even afterwards, I think I was chatting to you and you were saying that you're eyeing up the lad who got to the final, Tajikistan lad, and I think you said you every time he shot, you knew too well you could have got. Was it a Darcy you were saying you could have gotten?
Yeah,
every
no.
single time, yeah.
It's just I really especially all throughout, and it was almost like I fought Alex Connolly, and I didn't even really get to enjoy my Christmas. It was just I was so hyper focused on I really wanted that gold medal, and I was eyeing up and I was getting footage and I was studying anyone I could have come across in that junior 155-pound division. It was kind of scary, like the amount of time. I've had a notepad of like the names and the individuals. I think it was Breshkova was his name, the Tajikistani. He was very good. He very impressive over the performance. In my opinion, I thought he got robbed in the final against the Russian Maxim Fuchs. I thought that was a very I thought it was a ridiculous decision that went against him.
You were in with the Tajikistan lads screaming afterwards.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, I was because I couldn't believe it. I remember I was sitting there with Sergey, Jordan Scully, and Kieran Davin. We're all sitting there, and I was like, the Russians after taking that 100%. No, the Tajikistanis after taking that 100%. When the Russian won it, I was like, what? Now here's the only issue. Now I probably I'll only ever come across that Tajikistani now if I go senior because I'm still 19. But there's still a few. There's a Bahrainian that I'm looking at loads. I think his name is he's Bahrainian. He's 19. Can't remember his name. It'll come to me. But I've been looking at him. He's the same age as me. I reckon I'll come across him in the IMFs if I compete there again.
So like ever since then, you've gotten the surgery. What's that been like in the kind of the rehab of that? What's been happening ever since?
So the rehab, I was in a sling for 6 weeks after this surgery. It's very similar to what Peter Caoilte did to his shoulder, but he tore both sides of his labrum. I tore the front and partially a bit at the back. Had to get 8 artificial screws to screw the labrum back onto my shoulder bone, and the recovery for that it was very tough because there's not so much you can do within the first 3 months. The first 3 months of the whole surgery, you really have to just let it sit and let your body do the process of healing, And I think as an athlete, that's very tough because us athletes, we like things to be done as quick as possible. And we want everything sped up and we want to be competing. So it was very tough for me to adjust to that change a routine of me not training every day to me having to sit around and wait for something to heal, So as soon as I think it was 2.5, 3 months in, as soon as I could hold my left hand up to my head, I was down the gym striking, flowing through drills and stuff like that, doing whatever I could. I never really stopped training, even when I was in the sling, I was still going down to the gym when I was watching the boys train and stuff like that, But just as soon as I kind of got the thumbs up off the surgeon, I think that was such a relief, because a lot of work did get put into this rehab every day, going down, doing resistance band work, lightweight work, and just trying to get my shoulder as good as my right shoulder, trying to make it as identical as possible. As hard as it is, because it's like when you get surgery on something, a lot of people who haven't got surgery, they wouldn't know. When you get surgery on something, it's like your whole joint restarts. It's very weird and it's very it's hard to explain, but it's like your shoulder. For me, in my case, when I got the operation, it's like my shoulder was reborn, and I had to relearn these movements on all my arm, and it was from like the basic movements right up to the more complex movements, and that took a long time, but right now it feels really good. I'm happy that I waited. I did everything properly. I did everything I was told to do. And now because of that, I think I'm going to be able to get 2 fights in towards the end of the year. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Obviously, physically, Max, you have to do your rehab, but mentally, it must have been obviously very tough for you as well, because you're on the precipice of, giving yourself a right good chance of taking the goals at the World, and then you get injured, and then you're on the sidelines for the majority of the year. Were you kind of looking after your mentality, or kind of maybe talking to somebody and kind of, because I must know, for someone and fighters who are always pretty much in control of their fate. You do the training, you go in there and fight, and then you have all of that taken away from you. It's tough to deal, and especially as a young man as well, to deal with that mentally as well. What did you kind of do to kind of overcome those mental hurdles?
So it was actually very, very difficult at the start. I've never struggled with something mentally in my life, like, just because everything's kind of running smooth. So like the way I'll explain life is, it's either great or it's either shit, you know what I mean? And I think I never, like, at that flight, I've never been so heartbroken in my life. Coming home from Abu Dhabi, I remember coming home, and then to top it all off, when the surgeon called me and told me I needed surgery, that was just like the final nail in the coffin, you know. Just from, like, you know, the heartbreak of not even losing at the competition, but having to pull out because I couldn't fight. I think that's even worse. I'd rather go in there and lose, and knowing that I had lost, than have to pull out of a competition, have to pull out of a fight, you know. I think that was very tough for me. And then how I overcame that mental struggle was, I had to take it by the day. I had to do it. Okay, what can I do today to make this shoulder process speed up? What can I do to make things better? And I struggled a lot because I'm a person who is in the gym 6-7 days a week. And now it's like you're going to the gym and you have a different perspective. But what I did do was I kept in tune with the Irish MMA scene, and I'd look at all the amateur fights that were going on, and I'd be visualising who I could be fighting when I was back. That made it a lot easier for me once I started doing that. So I was looking at everyone in my weight, looking at everyone featherweight. I was even looking at a few welterweight, because I think I might get a bit bigger maybe in the next 3 to 4 years. But that's what I was doing. I was keeping in sync with the whole Irish MMA scene, but not making a kind. It was nice to be keeping in, like, tune with it, and, like, not no one was knowing, like, knew that I was doing it, you know. It was just a thing for myself, so it was like almost me still being involved while I was working on something else, you know.
Was it like your obsession for competing and training kind of transferred over to an obsession for doing whatever you could in the meantime?
That's what it was, and I feel like in this sport you have to. You can't not. It's not like a Monday to Friday thing, you know. It's a 24/7 thing.
Max, how long have you been obsessed with MMA for, and why are you obsessed with MMA?
I'm obsessed with this is why, and I'll always say it. I visualize myself as a gladiator. You know, I'm a modern day gladiator. I go in and I fight, and this is how I'm gonna make a living. You know, and that's what the gladiators did back in the Colosseums. I'm modern day gladiator, so that's what I like to call myself. That's why I'm so obsessed with it. But as well as that, I'm not just obsessed with the sport, but I'm obsessed with, like, the breakdown of the technique and stuff like that. Sound like a bleeding nerd saying all this stuff, yeah. But, like, in school, I could never focus on school, you know. I could never do maths, do English, do anything like that. But what I could do is I could break down a fight in the matter of seconds, you know what I mean? So that's why I just put a lot of work into my craft. This is my job, you know what I mean? This is what I do for a living, and I'm gonna make sure I do everything I can to make sure, you know, I make it, like, you know.
You were saying there you didn't really enjoy school as much and you couldn't really focus, but you could break down a fight. You, if I'm not wrong, you dropped out of school, didn't you? How did that exactly go down? Was that to pursue MMA full time? Yeah.
I mean, yeah, no, it was, yeah. So I think I did. I was in 6th year. I wasn't even in 5th year. So I was in 6th year. It was me leaving 3rd year, and I had fought on Euro Fighting Championships against Pádraig Hannon. And that was, I think it was on like the 1st or the 2nd of September. And I was only going into school, so I had fought that weekend, and I was doing my first week of school. And all the teachers, like, big year, stuff like that. And all I could think about was, who am I fighting next and when is it? You know, that's what kind of first went into my head. I really gave a shot in school, you know. But I came home one of the days, I just left school early. I said to my mum, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to fight. I want to train, and I want to try give this MMA gig full time swing and see how I get on. And had a big conversation over dinner. You know, I said,
how'd that go down?
Yeah, I'm sure that was
school. Don't leave school. This, that, and the other. But as soon as she seen how actually happy I was, going to the gym and coming home, and I was just in really good form. It just gets my morale good, gets me happy. So when she kind of was seeing me coming in, because I'd be coming in from school and I'd just be like, oh, like, I don't want to do this, and it was kind of forced, But when you're doing something that you really want to do and that you actually want to do, it automatically just makes you happier, And once she's saying that, she was all right with it. My dad never had a problem with it in the first place. He's a good skin, so.
They're both very supportive, though. You can see that in their social media posts, especially with your dad and obviously with your mom as well, to support you in your journey. And that must be very important for you as well, to have that unwavering support.
No, 100%. They're my two best friends. They do everything for me. Like, everything for me. I wouldn't be half the athlete, but even half the person I am without them, I love me, man. I love both of them, They do so much for me. And it's just, I think that support that I have at home, it helps me twice as much as if I didn't have it, Obviously, I'm older now, so it's a bit more independent, but even with me mum and dad are still helping me whenever they can, and it's really great, and I'm really happy about that. And now it's great that my little brother's gonna probably get that same support now if he decides to whatever route he wants to go down. He's doing a bit of MMA and jiu-jitsu at the moment, but whatever he wants to go down, he'll get that same support from me mum and dad.
So, like, we'll move on to, I guess, the fight now. And from what I understand, you've two fights booked. We know one already against Armin Herzog. But what can you tell us the second one, or is that confirmed yet?
Yeah, it's confirmed. It's on Vida Fight Championships over in Manchester. I'm fighting some Scottish geezer, something McMillan, Gary McMillan is his name. I was really struggling to get matches. I've been trying to get matched on cage legsy since mid-August, start of September. That's how long I've been trying to get matched for. And then even over for Vida Championships, I couldn't get a match for about, I only found out there last week that I got a match. They've been trying to match me since start of September, mid-September as well. I wanted to test myself and try to get 4 fights this year with a surgery, before I go away to Thailand, because I'm going to be missing out on time being able to fight. I'll be over in Thailand from the 21st of December to the 5th of February over in Bangtan Muay Thai in Phuket. And I said it'd be nice to try to get 2 fights in before the end of the year. And I'm after getting them, it was just more kind of a thing. Whoever says yeah, I'll fight them. You know what I mean? I just want to fight. I don't have a fear of losing, because soon as you lose, I know I'll make them improvements, and that'll do more for me than any win. You know what I mean? But I don't know what it is about majority of the amateur fighters or whatever like that. They just don't want to take hard fights or whatever like that, So
yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, Max. It was like you said something there. You want to challenge yourself, and I think when you look at like amateur experience, that's what it's about. You're putting yourself in there and getting those tough challenges. Like, I mean, wins and losses really and truly at the end of the day in your amateur career really mean fuck all when you turn pro. Why do you think that there's a kind of environment that exists in around the amateur game or the amateur kind of scene right now that people aren't willing to take these chances?
Because I think they have I think a lot of amateur fighters have a persona up of they're going to be the unbeaten amateur that goes pro unbeaten, and I think that's a persona that a lot of them have, and I just think that in amateur MMA, it really does not matter if you win or if you lose, you know what I mean? Because 3 days later, no one's going to care, and they're going to be talking about the next amateur fights. The way I see it is, it's like I had a lot of talk about me before I got injured. As soon as I got injured, who's talking about me? No one, you know what I mean? And that's the exact same when you lose. No one's going to care. No one's going to talk about it when you lose, you know what I mean? It's a part of life. You'll never come across any successful, well, Khabib can be an exception, but any high-level MMA fighter has lost at a certain part in their life, whether it's in the cage, whether it's just in life in general. I just think loss is a part of it, and you can take it one of two ways. You can either evolve from it or you can shy from it, and I think a lot of people shy from it, you know what I mean? But I'm unbeaten, but if I lost tomorrow, I couldn't care because I know it's just going to make me better, isn't it? So it's just about cage time is what I care about. That's it.
Yeah, you said
Nothing
something
else.
you said something that really stuck out to me is that you're looking forward to your first loss because you know that you're going to grow from it, and it's just an excellent attitude to have. And you said Habib is a rare exception in the professional ranks, and it's true because, to be honest, even in my opinion, wins and losses don't really matter all that much in the professional ranks either, as well, especially
Yeah.
early days, because you're going to use them as learning curves, and you are going to get better. But it's a good attitude to have. Where did you kind of develop that mentality towards fighting, Max?
A big part of it would have been jiu-jitsu. In jiu-jitsu, it would have been the same. And it would have been a part of me when I was competing jiu-jitsu when I was younger. I hated losing, But the more I lost, the more I became okay with it. And then from that, I carried it over to my MMA because, like, in jiu-jitsu, I would have been submitting a lot of people in my club at the time. And I remember the biggest humbling experience, and I think this is where I really developed it from. I went over to Henzo's in New York City, and when I went over there, I couldn't even submit a white belt. You know what I mean? Because they just had such a different style of jiu-jitsu on leg entanglements, and just the way they played the game to perfection. You know what I mean? And in the way Danaher had all his guys doing it, So when I went over there, I didn't submit anyone for about 3 weeks. And this is anyone in the room, anyone I went with. And the more humbling thing was you didn't know if they were a white belt or you didn't know if they were a black belt because it was no-gi. So as soon as I kind of adopted that mentality of it's like, if you lose in the gym, so what? If you lose in the cage, so what? I know if someone beats me, they're beating me at 110%. There's not going to be any sort of anything wrong, didn't show up or whatever like that. If someone beats me, they beat me at my best, and that's it. It's up to me then to make the improvements to try make that not happen again.
How old were you when you were over with the Danaher Death Squad?
16. Just went
Jesus.
16.
I'd say that was some experience.
Mental.
Oh, it was mad. I was over in New York from September right up until December. I was there 2 months. It was just 2 months of training, 6 days a week. And at the time, I was in transition year, so I didn't really have to go to school. But I think that's what kind of started that. Oh, maybe school isn't for me, But,
yeah. Did you get roles in with Gary Tone and Gordon Ryan, Nicky Ryan, those lads?
Gary knows me. I went over to Gary's gym in New Brunswick in New Jersey. As a kid, whenever I'd be over in America in New Jersey, I'd always drive over to his gym and train with him whenever I could. Gary's such a nice guy. Same with Gordon, same with Auld. They're really approachable guys and they're really nice. You know what I mean? But I rolled with me. I've gotten rounds in. I got rounds in with Nicky Ryan. I got round in with Gordon, Gary, another lad. He's kind of a hidden one though. Damien Anderson. He's legit as well. Oliver Taza, Ethan Krillstein. I've got rounds in with all of them, and they're just at such a high level in jiu-jitsu. But as soon as I seen them, and I think the biggest thing was when I looked at Gordon, and he would be doing jiu-jitsu rounds, and he'd be letting people start in his back. He'd be letting people start in like a full extended armbar, stuff like that. And he'd be getting submitted in training. And when I was looking at this and I see Gary then, and Gary Townend be getting submitted in training, and they're all getting submitted. So in my head, it's like, these guys are actually okay in getting beat in training. And then in my head, it's like, no wonder they're so good because they're putting themselves in these terrible positions. And they're getting submitted, but when it comes to go out and then come like when they need to perform on the big stage, they perform, and that's like the biggest thing that I took away from that. So when I came home, I really changed my style of training in jiu-jitsu, which was to put myself in them bad positions to make myself comfortable in the uncomfortable. And then I made the transition over to kind of MMA during the lockdown. Then got a lot of training with all really. Took me a while to transition into the MMA grappling because it's a lot different, Still am transitioning into the MMA grappling, It's a sport where you can never be too good anywhere, You have to be as best as you can, absolutely everywhere, and that's what I just try to do. I try to train in the MMA gym as much as possible and just get as well rounded as I possibly can in grappling, striking, whatever it is, you know. And I think if you're not doing that, it's going to be very difficult to succeed in the sport.
You train in, I think, 3 locations now? So SBG Nace, Charlestown, and DCA as well.
And Irish Strength Institute as well. They're the guys that did me whole shoulder rehab. John Connor out of the ISI, top man. He's the reason that I'm coming back from this injury so soon. You know, got all the proper work. So it's 4 locations. Great guys out of the ISI. Hugo Borum has a jiu-jitsu club there as well. So sometimes I stay back with him and do a few light drills and stuff like that. So it's not 3, it's 4 locations now.
Be 5 by next year.
Yeah, stop.
So what kind of like led you to decide to train in all these different locations? Because we see guys who will just stick to the one gym people only, and they might not go to other ones. What's given you the mindset to start training in different locations, get all these different bodies?
Well, it's where my loyalty has been. It's like Roddy would have graded me all up throughout the kids' belts when I was younger in jiu-jitsu. He would have given me grey belt right up until me green belt, you know. With Collie, I've been in and out at DCA since, like, and people don't really know this, but I've been in and out at DCA since I'm maybe 11 or 12, you know. And then with Sergey, I've been wrestling since I'm 13. And all these guys have different gyms, but, you know, these are me coaches. So it's like, if I have to go out, if they're all in the same gym, it'd be great, you know what I mean? But it's great for me as well to go out to different gyms, train with top guys. Like in Nace, it's great wrestling with all the guys out there. Like you've a few of the younger guys, Brandon Blake, and even like I train a lot with Conor McCarthy as well. He bounces, he goes to college in DCU, so he does be in Charlestown as well. But it's like, I get to train with all these different bodies, and there's different problems to be solved. You know what I mean? Different style of fighter, you know. And I just feel like I'm becoming more versatile at doing that, because it's like when I go to the different gyms, I'm fighting different strikers, I'm fighting different wrestlers, different MMA fighters, you know. And I just feel like it's something I've always done, and I feel like it's benefited me the most. So that's why I've continued to do it.
I know Craig has a big fight coming up next week. Craig Oakley. What's it like getting in the ring with him?
Craig makes you feel like an idiot in the ring. That's the only way I can explain it. He makes you feel like an idiot. He's so technical. He's such a technical striker. And even at that, like the past while, I haven't really gotten a whole lot of training with him. But whenever I do spar, I'm always taking something away from it, you know. He's such an elite level striker. Even Collie, like with some of the details that he does be given, he's just so elite, and I'm looking forward to it, because there's no doubt in my mind Craig's gonna slaughter this fella. Like, he's so technical, but just even in the way he strikes, he's landing his shots, but he's not trying to kill you. You know what I mean? He's letting you know that if I land this, you're down. If I land this, you're down, and that's the majority of the time. You know, it's just his distance management and his range is just so hard to time, you know. But it's great, because it's like Craig is undoubtedly one of the best strikers in the country. You know what I mean? Like, you can't take that away from him. He's such an elite striker. I'm really looking forward to him fighting, though, you know. He's on that road to 1. So if he gets to 1 championship, you know, that's huge for the gym. And I'd be fucking delighted for Collie, him, everyone in the gym, you know. It'd be a big celebration. So we're all behind them for that anyway. And
you're heading out to Thailand yourself, aren't you?
I am indeed. What
was the decision behind that? And why'd you pick Bangtao? Because I know you've all the different gyms. You've some of the pure Thai gyms, and then you've got Tiger, AK. What attracted you to Bangtao?
Bangtao, the Hickman brothers did. So the Hickman brothers, I think, used to be in Tiger Muay Thai, but they actually left and they opened their own gym. And I just think I wanted more MMA style based now. I probably will still end up going over to Tiger Muay Thai, you know, try bounce between the 2 gyms. But I was just looking at the Hickman brothers. I always look at their technical breakdowns. And when I found out that my mum was like, "Do you want to go to Thailand for the Christmas?" And I was like Christmas, like, you want to know what I have it here? And she's like, "I think do it for a change." So when they said they were going over to Thailand, I just kind of said, "Yeah, I may as well just stay over here for a few weeks. Like, what's happening from January to February? You know what I mean?" So I booked me flights over, and I decided to book a place, and I'm gonna stay over there now for 6 weeks. Can't wait for it. But the reason for me doing these trips is I've done these trips all the time. I've been doing these trips to America since I'm 16, but because of the COVID restrictions, I couldn't do it for so long. So now it's just more or less doing the same thing I do in America, just in like a different location, in a different country, different culture, different people. You know, I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be good. But I think Bangtown Muay Thai would be really. You have the Hickman brothers are Adesanya's wrestling coaches and Volkanovski's wrestling coaches, and I think there'd be really, really good bodies there for me for MMA to develop my skill further. So it just out of personal thought, I just thought it'd be a good gym for myself to go to. And as well as that, it's only 5 minutes away from the apartment that I'm staying in, you know. So I couldn't have it much easier.
So you be out there by yourself then for a few months, will you?
Yeah.
So when you said you were going over to America, like were you there, over in America by yourself, or was it with family, or what?
I was over there by myself. Well, I have family over there, but
Yeah.
man, that was more or less like when I was there. I was left in me. They're family friends. They wouldn't really be. We're not related in any sort of way, but we may as well be related. All of us are very close, you know. But they'd be like the Mairead and Kevin, Joyce, their name. So my mum has family friends over in Rockland County, so that's in New York. And my mum grew up with these because my mum used to go over to America all the time for holidays, and just throughout the years, just always kept in contact with them, and we're all very close with them. So what happened was my mum inquired about me going over, and they said, yeah, he can stay with us. We live in Manhattan. It was a 15-minute walk to Henzo's. They said, why not? Saved up, bought flights over there. And when I was over there, I was with them, but at the same time, a lot of it was I was by myself a lot, you know. I was by myself in the apartment. I was 16 doing my own washing. My ma always used to do it for me. You know what I mean?
Max Lally home alone.
That's what it was. But really, really enjoyable, and I really felt like I matured a lot as a person from it. So I'm looking forward to this trip in Thailand now. It's going to be the same thing. I'm going to be by myself, training every day, and just doing what I like doing. You know, I like training and I like MMA. So I'm just training every day, and you know, I'm getting to do it in like a hot different country, you know. So really looking forward to it.
I hear you were grappling there on Tuesday night with a certain Conor McGregor.
Oh yeah, no, I was grappling with Conor. No, Conor, it's great to have Conor back in the gym. We just did Sergey. There was a technical session in wrestling on a Tuesday, and he came in. He just did a few drills for an hour and a half and a few wrestling rounds. And yeah, that was it. It was great to have him back. I reckon he said he's getting back into the training and stuff like that now. So we should see a lot more from him now. He's after finishing up that movie with Jake Gyllenhaal, I think. So it's great to have him back in the gym with all the lads. You know, a lot of lads in the gym look up to him, and me myself, I look up to him as well. So it was great to have him back in the gym. He's put on big fella now though.
Did you get any rounds in with him? Is he big, feeling strong? Yeah.
He's feeling very good. For the amount of time that he's had off, you know, he's still very, very technical. I think a lot of people don't give him enough credit of. He actually is a very good grappler, you know. Like he never usually has to show it when he fights, but he actually is a really, really high level grappler, you know. And just for myself, it's really good to move around with someone who's fought at that elite level, you know, like to kind of gauge yourself off that, you know. But he came in Tuesday, you know, seemed in really good form. It was great to have him back in the gym, like, you know what I mean? There's not really much else to say. Like, he's just good character to have around, you know. He's an icon of the sport, and it's great to train with icons of the sport, you know, and to get recognition of them.
100%. One thing I'd like to ask you, Max, obviously we're fresh off the back of Paul Hughes' great win over Jordan Vucenic last weekend at Cage Warriors, and seeing that and all the hype around it. I know obviously it's still a ways away for you, but when you think about the path that you would like to follow as a fighter, when you do eventually turn professional, like, is that something that you're thinking about at all now? Would you like to follow in the footsteps of the likes of Conor and Paul and go down the Cage Warriors route, pick up the title and ultimately get to the UFC, or what are you kind of thinking along those lines?
I've always said it. That's the route I'd love to go down. But at the same time, I think when you first go pro, it's kind of taking whatever you can get, if that makes sense, you know. As well as that, I think a lot of pro in that early stage and then first 3-4 fights, you're taking whatever you can get. And as soon as that call up for Cage Warriors comes, if it does come for me, I'll 110% jump at it with two hands. I think UFC is the goal. For any MMA fighter planning to go pro, majority of the time UFC is going to be the goal. But at the same time, it's not just getting to the UFC. You know what I mean? That's not just the only goal. The goal is to get as high as I possibly can to get to them top rankings in the UFC. If I'm being honest, I'm not just here to get signed to the UFC, have a few fights, and you know what I mean. That'd be it. Like I want to get to the top level, as high as I can get. So, what's the matter with my camera there?
you've disappeared.
Gone dark on us.
Oh, here we are.
There we go. You're back now. You were talking, Max, about it being, a career. This is your career. You're only 19. Like, you're still an amateur. You've only had a few fights. It's still very early days. But when you do think about becoming pro, is it maybe your answer will change over time? But is it more about money and prize fighting, or is it purely about you want to be the best in the world?
No, it's doing what I've done for so long. I haven't done this sport for this amount of time, and for any financial gain, it's just something I pure enjoy doing. But at the same time, at this stage, you have to treat yourself like a business. You know what I mean? I know that people want to see me fight, and when they do want to see me fight in the UFC, I'm gonna have to treat it as a business standpoint. But at the same time, it's the reason I do it is because I purely enjoy doing it. There's no other reason, But I think the biggest thing for me is I just want to give it 110%. And even if I give it that 110% and I don't make it, at least I've given it me all. You know what I mean? I don't want to live with that. I might have been able to, as well as that, a big thing that I looked at, and I was looking at this before you even reposted it, Andy. The video of Paul Hughes, the interview that you did with him when he's my age and he's 1-0 pro, and he'd take 2 years off the sport for all the hand injuries that he had. And I remember looking at that, and I'm like, if he's told he can never fight again, and he comes back after 2 years, goes on a tear in the pro featherweight division, didn't he? He fought one at welterweight. I think he did a Cage Warriors.
Yeah, his Cage Warriors debut.
You know what I mean? That's how much that kid wants it, and I think I compare myself. That's how much I want it. You know what I mean? Anyone in the gym will tell you if I give it 100%, I give it 110%. There's none of this 80%, 70% effort. I'm giving it my blood, sweat, and tears, and that's why every time I go into fight, I am at the best I can possibly be. So if someone beats me, they've beat me at my best. There's no kind of excuses, nothing like that, because I'm not someone who half-arses this sport. I'm someone that puts absolutely everything they can into it. But obviously doing the right things, doing eating well, training safe, and try not to do stupid things to get injured, like me continuing to fight with a torn labrum in my shoulder. But that's the biggest thing for me, is it's just to give it that 110%, and for whatever happens from them happens. I'm taking it by the day. This is a tough sport to be in, and I think if you get worried and get stressed and you worrying what's going to happen in the next 2-3 years, you're not going to enjoy the current journey that you're on. And I think the journey that I'm on right now, very early in my career, is something that I won't get back. So I'm enjoying it,
Yeah, I have one more for you, Max.
No problem.
I don't think, for fighters like yourself, you're 19, you're, as you said, very early in your career. There's no need to be heaping on pressure about, when are you going to turn pro? What's the long-term plan? Because there's so much time still to go. Do you put a pressure on yourself, though? Like, do you have a goal to say, I want to fight X number of times as an amateur, I want to get whatever experience I can? Or are you just kind of going with the flow and seeing how it goes? Like, you don't come across as a guy who, you've no ego. I feel like you just run with it.
See, what happens, I find a lot, is when you let that get to you, and you let that, I'm not going to say, I'd say partially, but when you're fighting all the time and a lot of people are talking about you. What tends to happen is that pressure builds up. Does that make sense? And once that pressure builds up, I find with me, and it has done before, it actually affects your training and the way you train. So you were saying, I have so much time before I go pro. I think if I could fight every 2 weeks, I'd fight every 2 weeks. But unfortunately, that's not the case. There's not shows on that often. So I think what will happen though is, if I can get fights, I'll get fights. If I can't get fights, I'll have to do the IMAFs. And that's just the way it'll be until Roddy and Sergey look at me and say, Max, I think you're ready to go pro. My career is solely in their hands. I have 150% trust in them that they'll make the right decisions for me. And they'll let me know, and it's, thumbs up, Max, it's time to go now, But until then, I'm just going to be doing what I do, training, having fun and fighting, because that's what's fun for me at the moment,
Well, Max, I think we don't have any other questions for you. We've kept you for about 40 minutes. I think we'll let you go and enjoy the Liverpool win. They just about scraped, I think.
Just about scraped the salad and a brace the last time I was watching it.
A good performance, but you'll struggle to get the top 4 this year, I'd say, Max. What do you reckon? What? You were going to win. You were going to win it all last year, and then it's all come crumbling down this year. What's going on?
Yeah, listen, El Sadio went, didn't he? He was a key figure. But I've no doubt Klopp will pull us top 4. We get Champions League ball. Not a chance. We're not going Europa League. We're gonna get Champions League football this year. How that happens, I don't know.
He might get Nottingham Forest back at the end of the season, sure.
Who do you support? United, Arsenal?
I know fuck all about football. That's the only thing I can throw in.
I can't say too much now. I'll stop before I stay going on, because I do support Man United, so we're not going too great ourselves. Not a great
Villa beat us 2-1.
I know. Not a great bit of sympathy from a Liverpool fan, but that's to be accepted. But we won't keep you any longer, Max. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Right, take care.
Appreciate it, Max.
Cheers, Max.
Right, lads, on to a couple of other items. Let's talk Ger Harris, shall we? I thought that he looked unbelievable in Cage Fight Series. He took on Tornike Javets Tadze. That's a tough one, lads, isn't it? That's a tough one.
Well done.
Javet Tadze, yeah, but Jesus, yeah, whatever. That's tough to say. It was tougher to be in there with Ger Harris on the night. I mean, as debuts go, I don't think it could have went much better for Ger Harris at Cage Fight Series. In the very first exchange, lands an overhand right, drops his opponent, goes down, dominates the grappling exchanges, and goes on to secure a rear naked choke win. And I think that it was just an excellent performance overall. I'm sure you were just as impressed with as I was, Caoilte, with him overall. Just a solid performance, and he's a really top prospect to keep an eye on. The world is his oyster. A couple of big fights, maybe for the title, perhaps next, the Cage Fight Series next, if things go his way.
Yeah, like he's shown us what we kind of expected from when he went. Like, we always knew he was very well-rounded, good striker, and he's willing to take tough fights. We saw that with his debut against Ciarán Mulholland, and we saw a Cage Fight Series. I know this was a replacement for the original opponent, but still a tough fight. Went in, made easy work, unscathed, and we could probably see him in there again soon. Like, considering he had about a minute and a half in there, if even that. Yeah. So I'd love to see that fight. It was originally booked, the Nasruddinov. I'd love to see that one. I think it'd be great, and it'd be a good test. That for a belt or something would be great crack.
Yeah,
but,
stick a belt on the line. Stick a belt on the line. Make it exciting. That's what I say. Yeah, look, I was talking to his Ger's Ger's manager and good friend of the podcast, Paul Fogarty, and he was saying that they could find very little tape on this guy. You're going to hear about that. There was very little tape, but and that's difficult to go in there when you don't have any tape, or you don't know what kind of a style your fighter, your opponent has. But Ger didn't really matter in the end, Andy, didn't it? Not. It was that first right hand, and then just pure domination after the fact.
Yeah, that performance is all about Ger and not about the opponent. Like, to be honest, I probably wouldn't put too much weight into the opponent. Like, it looked like it was his first MMA fight, and if you click into Tapology,
And again,
so
though,
we
if you look
blame
at-
Caoilte now, Tapology, 60th out of 64 active pro flyweight. So that's per Tapology, not per me, per Caoilte to Barra Tapology. But it doesn't matter. Like Jerry's a savage. He went in, dropped him immediately, as he said, and got the choke. It was as flawless a performance as you could ask for. And then he had a great crack on the microphone after. Like, I love watching Jerry Harris fight, for his personality, for the way he fights. He looks to be incredibly well rounded as well. And you know, this on to the next one. I just want to keep watching him fight and see how he gets on, because he's quite fun to watch.
And commentate.
And commentate. That was
commentate,
the GTA selector, Jerry Harris. That's what I was going to say.
Was he like the big man with the big shots with the... I can't remember what he said.
All we need, lads, is a video of Jerry Harris commentating on one of his own fights. And that's what we need. We need it, Jerry. Make it happen. Class. Be class.
Ireland's answer to Robin Black, is it?
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, things didn't go to plan over in Milan at Bellator 287 for Charlie Ward, as he dropped the decision to Fabian Edwards. It was a pretty strange but exciting kind of fight overall. Charlie went in there, made it really competitive, as he always does. Fabian found it hard to get off on the feet, looked good at range, got off his 1-2s quite well. Charlie closed the distance, and the guys found themselves grappling for the majority of the fight and talking shit to one another at the end of round 2 and round 3. It was just
number 2 in the world, and you're trying to hold me down. That was it. That was basically what was happening. It was not a great, I think, for Charlie to go in and get the win, he had to go and do what he needed to do, and that was make that fight dirty. And it was up to Fabian to kind of go in there and take the fight away from Charlie, and he really didn't manage to do that. He got the win. He'd probably deserved the win overall, but, it wasn't a blowaway win. I thought, Charlie definitely had some great moments there and looked good in the grappling exchanges. And, a lot of the time is spent rounds 2 and rounds 3. It was Fabian Edwards just on the back of Charlie working for the rear naked choke, and didn't kind of... didn't really look close.
No, not at all. It was just like, he went in and was understanding of the task at hand, and Fabian just went in, got the win and got the job done, but wasn't a blowaway win. You couldn't say it was an impressive performance by Fabian Edwards. Charlie will be coming back. He'll be hungry to fight again another day, I'm sure, as well. But, Charlie, there was a couple of exchanges on the feet. He took a serious head kick, I believe, in round 1. I don't know how he took that, proving that he has a serious chin on him. But apart from that, didn't really look too far out of place at all in there with Fabian Edwards, to be honest. And, something that he'll have to go back and work on. But, another couple of wins, he might find himself in a position again where he's in title contention. But it's back to the drawing board for Charlie at the very least. And hopefully we'll get to see him next year in Bellator as well. Your thoughts, Andy, on the performance overall from Charlie?
Yeah, I thought you analysed it quite well there. I think it's one of those wins/losses where it's not a win for Fabian Edwards that's everyone's like, oh wow, let's get him in front of the title right now. It's not it's not an overwhelming win. It's not a flashy one. And similarly, the loss for Charlie, he lost, but I don't think it really takes much away from his. It's kind of like a fight that happened, and it doesn't really dictate a whole lot in either of their careers, in my opinion. Charlie, as you said, was hanging in there. He didn't look like he was close to getting submitted at all, which is, that's a testament to him. So if Fabian Edwards is now top of the world and going to be fighting for challenging, say, Johnny Elbin, then Fabian Edwards isn't far off that either, in my opinion. So it'll be up to the next couple of fights that we see Charlie in. That'll maybe prove whereabouts he is. At the, towards the top of that Bellator middleweight division, but yeah, it was just kind of it was a weird fight. I don't know. I didn't really know what to think coming out of the fight, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it was a strange one, wasn't it, Caoilte? Obviously Charlie would be disappointed not to get the win, but then Fabian definitely left disappointed with his performance as well, and he even said it himself. It wasn't a great performance, and he needed to do better. But he was going in there to try and do better. he just wasn't let perform the way he wanted to perform. And that's solely down to Charlie and then the way Charlie approached the fight as well. And, I thought, look, there's plenty of positives that you can take from this fight if you're Charlie Ward or if you're Kieran Davern or the SPG Tullamore crew down there in defeat, knowing that you can hang in there with some of the best in the division.
Yeah, completely. I think that, to be honest with you, the best part of the fight was the first round when we saw a bit of trade between the two of them. I know Fabian landed the head kick. Charlie actually caught him with a nice, I think it was a hook there at one point as well. And after round one, I thought we were going to see more of it. We didn't really get to, and it was a bit of a, not stalemate, but as you said, Fabian was in there. He got the job done. He wasn't really, it wasn't as if he was looking for the submission at all times, but as you said, the fact that Charlie was able to stop these attempts or stop Fabian from landing enough strikes to get a stoppage or getting a choke in. There's a lot to be taken from that, and I think they both helped each other in that one to improve in different ways because you got a different look than what they're probably used to. So yeah, a lot of positives. I guess just back to the drawing board, focus on the next one. I don't think he took enough damage to rule him out for a long time at all, so we could easily see him back in there in February, and hopefully we do, I think.
It kind of speaks to his conditioning as well, right? That, Fabian had a lot of time to work off the back, and Charlie, he didn't look like he was breaking a sweat a lot of the time, defending everything. And my God, the shit, before the biggest takeaway I had was the shape that Charlie Ward came in. That's the best shape he's ever been in.
Ridiculous.
He was absolutely ripped.
Yeah, if you're talking about not looking in any trouble, if you're going to get prepared for someone to have your back and to be defended rear naked chokes, who else would you want in Ireland right now other than Kieran Davern there to defend that with? So, that just shows the kind of work that they've been doing where, obviously, look, Charlie could have been working to try get to his feet as well. We have to say that. But, obviously that didn't happen. But at the end of the day, like Andy, you described it perfectly. It was like there was a lot of stalemate positions. But, I think Charlie was true to the word and what he was saying, number two in the world. And, he basically said what we were saying now. You're number two in the world, but, you're basically just surviving in here somewhat, or not kind of pushing any boundaries to get me out of there. So it was definitely some solace.
It was pretty funny at the end, like watching them kind of talk shit.
I didn't know what the referee thought they were going to fight. I thought they were going to fight. I was like, are they going at it? And the referee,
but they seem to almost kind of make up after. I'm pretty sure Charlie was saying we'll get some work in. It was almost they were right, you help me, I help you, and we're going to get to it. We fought, now let's get to the top.
100%, yeah, good way to look at it. But excited to see Charlie back in there again. I'm sure we'll see him on one of the shows, if not two, next year at Bellator Dublin. It'd be great to see him fighting at home again as well, if that does happen. Moving on, Caoilte, I'm going to go to you just to talk a little bit about the Fight Project show that went on in Ballymena. Obviously, show being run by Dec Larkin, I believe, and Reese McKee as well. Went down last weekend. Give us the old breakdown of what went down on that show.
Yeah, it's one of these cards. I think there was some boxing fights in this event as well, but the MMA portion of 10 fights, 2 pro fights top of the card, a lot of debuts. So I didn't get to see any of the amateur fights or anything, but there was one real standout amateur fight, and that was between Nahom Blessweddy and Dom Norcus? Yeah, that's his name. The rising prospect that Andy's been raving about for the past few months now, I think. But it was, I think Nahom came out on top, and that one was a split decision win for him. And then the two top of the card, we had Leon Hill against Dylan Douglas. Leon Hill, I think, once again, I've only saw videos on Instagram. Leon Hill, I think it was a ground and pound. He won, and there's a moment in there, he winks over this corner just to let him know that he has this under control. And he moved to 3-1 as a pro now at the finish in the second round. And the headliner then was George Courtney and a guy called Vinnie Baldwin, who doesn't exactly have the most flattering record in the world. I think I don't know if he's a UK journeyman or not. He's 1-8 as a pro, and that was
his profile's flagged on Tapology as
oh, is it?
Yeah.
Well, it tells you enough, really. Anyway, so I don't know. I
think George Courtney retired in the cage after as well, so maybe it was just kind of a.
Could be just one of those.
It wasn't a matchup that it was an odd one, but maybe it was just kind of a nice send off.
Yeah, good to see Leon Hill back in the win column, though, Andy. You know, he's had a promising year, and that's his third win of the year, is it, or second win of the year? I want to say third win of the year.
Yeah, I think third.
For Leon as well. It's great to see him back. He's moved to 3-1 as well, and I'd be expecting a pretty big 2023 from Leon, Andy. Would you?
I want to see Leon against better competition, more experienced competition now. I think he's proven himself 3 back-to-back for, I think they were all first round finishes, or was this one second round maybe against Dana Douglas? I haven't actually seen I saw the clips, but I don't think there's any. I couldn't get a stream for this, and I haven't seen any footage after the fact.
Yeah, it was second round this one.
Yeah, like he landed. I saw that whatever footage was out there, like vicious elbows. That seems to be his bread and butter, is just getting into mount essentially or to the back and just raining down shots. So I want to see. I think Leon Hill should probably get it. Like he fought his debut on Cage Warriors. Short notice, if we've talked about it before, where he was
on 1 week's notice.
Yeah, on one of the Ngari fight. Like I'd be happy to see him thrown into Cage Warriors again now, to be honest with you. I don't think he needs to be fighting. I think he's ready for a step up in competition. I thought, look, Dylan Douglas is not a can or anything like that. But I think he slumped he was 0-3, now he's 0-4. I think it's time for a step up in competition here. 3 back-to-back wins, back-to-back finishes, but I think there's a gap in the level of competition between. It speaks to where Leon's level is at as well. But it's time for better competition.
Indeed, yeah, could not agree more there as we move on. Bellator officially announced, obviously, pretty soon after the last event, that they're going to be heading back to the Tree Arena on the 24th of February for another show. And there's a couple of fights in the works, and I'm going to send it over to the man who is actively breaking those fights, and that's Andy Stevenson. Give us the scoop, Andy. Couple of fights on tap for Bellator, a couple of exciting ones, a couple of new faces, and break it down basically. What can you tell us?
Yeah, so we've got a few fights slated for Bellator, whatever number it is, don't know what number it'll be, but it's the Friday the 24th of February in Dublin's Tree Arena. So we've Richie Smullen is returning to Bellator to face Piotr Nijelski. So you'll recall Nijelski fought Pedro Carvalho in his last fight. So Nijelski came in, I think he was the Babylon MMA lightweight champion or a featherweight champion, one of them. I think he was a lightweight champion, and he was coming down to fight a featherweight. He beat Pedro Carvalho. I put up this fight, and Pedro Carvalho commented underneath, being like, "You're actually wrong there. He didn't beat me," because he disputes the judges' scorecards, but on paper he beat Pedro Carvalho. So for Richie Smullen to come in here, returning to Bellator, he parted ways with the promotion, and he went on a great tear. He's finishing fights. He became a double champion in another promotion in the Ukraine, real fight promotion, and now he's back. So to go in against, like, Nijelski is not ranked right now, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, considering he's beaten Pedro Carvalho.
Don't get me wrong. I have a couple of thoughts. We'll wait until you finish the fights. I have a couple of thoughts on matchmaking with Bellator, to be honest.
Yeah. So look, this is a solid. I think this is a really good matchmaking here to throw Richie Smullen in against someone who's beaten someone right at the top of the division. This throws Richie Smullen right in the mix. We also have the aforementioned Pedro Carvalho. Now this is verbally agreed on both sides. Bellator are targeting this one. It's not officially signed, sealed, delivered over the line just yet, but they're targeting Pedro Carvalho versus Jeremy Kennedy on this fight, which I think it makes a lot of sense. Maybe we'll just keep going down and we can talk about them after. But we've got in the cage, the Polish website reported that Richie Smullen fight first, and I also confirmed it separately with both the guys. Similarly, they reported that Maciej Rozansky is taking on Karl Moore. We'll talk about this one in a moment, a bizarre one. Sinéad Kavanagh, the news should be out by now. By the time you're listening to this, Sinead Kavanagh is going to be taking on Janae Harding in a rematch. So they obviously fought previously with Janae Harding winning, but it was a doctor stoppage. Sinead she had gotten the better of the striking exchanges, I thought, in the first round, but she got cut, and ultimately the fight didn't continue. And there's more to come. So there'll be more fights, and probably by the time this is out, who knows.
We'll take a breath. Where do we start? We'll start with Richie. Number one, it's great to see him back in there, isn't it, Caoilte? It's great to see him back in competing. Nijelski went in there against Pedro Carvalho. Took exception, and I took exception to that match being made, because I felt Pedro deserved a ranked opponent, number one. And I feel that, he was basically kind of given a lose-lose situation in that fight, and he ended up losing that on paper, as Andy said. He's kind of getting treated the same way if we kind of look at it from that point of view, where he's coming in now against Richie Smullen, who is unranked, and Richie Smullen can kind of take the shine. But I think this is a good fight. I think it's a good fight for Richie. I think it's a good fight for Pedro. I'm sure you're glad to see Richie back in there, and he deserves this chance again.
Yeah, like I was actually a little bit surprised originally when he got re-signed. I thought that UFC was next, to be honest. But I'm happy to see him back in Bellator. We get to see him in 3 Arena, and this is it's a tough opponent. Obviously, we saw what happened in the Pedro fight, so I guess there's some vengeance to be done there from the SBG camp to get a win back over him. So, well, on paper that is, as Andy said, but I'm really looking forward to seeing Richie back in there. We all know how good he is, and we've seen it when he left Bellator. He went on that tear over in Ukraine, and great to see him back.
100%. A fight that I definitely have no problem with the matchmaking with is Pedro Carvalho versus Jeremy Kennedy, Andy. That's a fucking barn burner in the making, and it's the proper fight to make, and Pedro deserves this fight. And, a good solid win over Jeremy could really set him up for another title shot here.
Yeah, I think this is number 1 contender fight. If you look at that division, Patricio Pitbull is tied up at the moment. He's got that New Year's Eve showdown with the rising champion, Klein. I can't remember.
Whoever. Who no one knows. Everyone
rising champion.
Right? Yeah, no one knows who these rising fighters are.
Yeah, so we're fighting him. So you've got AJ McKee's at lightweight now, and then Aaron Pico's just lost to Jeremy Kennedy. Obviously it was an injury, but still lost to Jeremy Kennedy. So now they're fighting each other. So I think this is number 1 contender fight. It makes a lot of sense, and thankfully, as you're talking there, but like Pedro's kind of set up for failure with that Najelski fight. It luckily has worked through his own hard work and getting the wins over the top quality opponents, that he's back right in that title mix. And he looked so good last time out against Mads Burnell, that I think he deserves. Like, he's kind of put his time. It was a stoppage loss and another stoppage loss after the title fight against JJ Wilson, but I think if he gets a win here, that whoever wins, they deserve a crack at the title.
100%. A fight that does not make any sense to me is the one that has been reported by Indicator. That's Karl Moore versus Magic Rozenski. Look, a lot of people will be asking who the fuck is Magic Rozenski. We know him because he's fought Will Fleury before, and has a win over Will Fleury. So maybe Will is after putting a hit out on him and maybe sending Karl in this direction. But for me, after Karl Moore's number 1, his last performance against Albrechtsen, his current ranking, and my personal opinion is I feel that he deserves a better matchup than this. Why not give him a ranked guy? Why you're doing the same thing as a promotion to Karl Moore as they tried to do to Pedro when they put him in there against Nizinski. And I just it doesn't make any sense. There's numerous guys. Okay, look, you're not going to match him up with Nemkov or Corey Anderson, or maybe not even Phil Davis. But you look at this Julius Ankliklis, who's number 5. Look at Alex Polisi. There's Grant Neal is there. There's loads of other. Why, when you pick up a win over a ranked opponent, what is the sense as a promotion giving him an unranked opponent next? I don't understand this. If someone wants to come and reach out to explain this to me, please do, because I really don't. And I feel that, Karl went in and proved himself against a ranked opponent in the last fight, and he should be given the opportunity to continue to fucking improve himself against ranked opposition. I don't know. This one has me fired up.
And he's not even ranked over ahead of the guy he just finished.
Yeah, it's just like, this doesn't make sense. And look at, I don't know how Karl feels about it. I'd be excited to hear how he does feel about it. I'm sure he doesn't give a fuck. He's probably glad to get in there, get the opportunity to get another win.
I don't know why they even have to have the matchup sorted right now. Like, we're the 6th. We're recording on the Sunday. We're recording the 6th of November. This fight isn't for another 3 months. Like, surely you could.
Remember, they did it with the last card too. It was 6 months out before when they were announcing. Which, and
to be fair, like, Bellator aren't announcing these because they're getting broken them. But like, the matchups are made. The matchups are made. Yeah. Now blame that Polish side. That's their fault.
No, but I mean, look at back. Maybe what do you think about this matchup?
It's a joke. It's what are we doing? Like, You have Karl Moore just put on the best performance of that card against, where he came through adversity. He showed that he's able to withstand, a tough period against a ranked opponent, an incredibly well-rounded opponent in Karl Albrechtsen, and then be able to come back and have this huge moment where he's getting a stoppage in the second round. And like, not even that, it's the little things outside. Like, you have the video of his dad. Like, that was a huge moment at Bellator Dublin that you can capitalize on. He's in the cage calling for Yoel Romero. Now, I don't think you don't need to give him Yoel Romero next, but you give him someone who's like in between, and then let's see how he gets on there. And then if he gets another stoppage, then let him call out Yoel Romero again, and you have him constantly calling for that fight. Have a huge fight, and like, there's
Lads,
just, what are you doing here?
Bellator should be crying out for an Irish champion. Think of the market that exists in Ireland right now, selling out twice a year. You could add another show and I guarantee it'll sell out. You should be crying out for someone like Karl Moore who can come. And look at it, everyone's saying we had our doubts about Karl Moore, but all those doubts are gone now because he's went in and proved himself against Karl Albrechtsen. And it might seem a bit rich from us saying that, you're talking him up now when we weren't so sure, but that's fucking mixed martial arts in a nutshell for you. You're only as good as your last performance, and Karl went out there and proved that he can hang with top 10 opponents. In my opinion, Bellator should be crying out for a guy like him. You put him in there in Dublin next February with a top 5 guy as a somewhat of a number 1 contendership fight, and if he wins that, you put him in a title fight in September next year, and you're off to the races. It makes all the sense in the world.
It doesn't even, I'm looking here just because out of curiosity, it doesn't even need to be top 5. Alex Polizzi, and look, there's obviously, it's matchmaking is easier said than done, so you have to get the other side to agree and all that stuff, obviously. But you look at, say, Alex Polizzi, he's ranked 1 above Karl. Or sorry, 2 above Karl, but the Karl's real spot is 8 because Karl Albrechtsen should be below him. He's ranked number 7. His last fight is against Yoel Romero. He got stopped in the 3rd round. Stick him in against Karl Moore. Let Karl Moore try go in and stop him in the 1st or the 2nd round, and then he gets on the mic and says, Yoel Romero, you beat Alex Polizzi in the 3rd round. I just did it in 2. I just did it in 1. Like, it's not that hard.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd love to kind of pick a few people's brains on that. Look, at obviously there's 2 sides to every story, but like, look at me looking from the outside in. I just think that those fights make themselves, and I thought it was a very peculiar decision, to kind of put Karl in there with an unranked, relatively unknown guy, because you know what, if he goes in there, and it's a big if he goes in there and it doesn't go his way, then all of that work and all of those stories that were created at the last Bellator event all go up in smoke. But,
watch Karl go in and get a nice highlight reel finish now in the 1st round, and we'll all be like, that was a great idea.
That was a great idea. we were ones to change our minds, but sure, look, that's what we're here for. Caoilte, Sinéad Kavanagh will be back in action again. Janae Harding will be her opponent. What do you think of that fight overall? Do you think it's a good comeback fight for Sinéad?
Yeah, I'm mute.
Sorry. I'm fucking heartbroken that's not against Cyborg, to be honest with you guys. Yeah, like, I thought I feel like we were sold a bit of a dream on Sinéad versus Cyborg, to be honest. But look, put that aside. Janae Harding, yeah, it's a good. Obviously, she's coming back she's had surgery since, so I think coming back and having a fight like this against a ranked opponent, perfectly fine, have no issues with it whatsoever. Do I think she'll beat her? Hands down. But yeah, look, it's a good one to come back against. If she wins, it's a title shot. It has to be honest. So if it isn't a title shot, fuming. But like, yeah, it has to be a title shot if she wins.
Yeah, I think Cyborg, if we're to talk about the title picture for a little bit, Andy, like, Cyborg is pushing for that Kat Zingano fight. That would be her last fight on her contract. There's no guarantee she'd re-sign. So we could be dealing with, towards the end of next year, a vacant title at 145-pound division. And obviously we have Leah McCourt circling around there as well, and Sinead coming back. There could be potential there, for something to happen with one or both of those women as well in regards to the title picture.
Yeah, definitely. I don't really have an issue with this matchup for Sinead at all, considering she's coming back off the injury. And I think it's you have it so she goes in here, she beats Janae Harding, and then she can say, that blemish on my record, that's gone now. When I heard it was a rematch. I was really hoping that it was Leslie Smith, to be honest with you. I thought that would have been
I would have loved the Leslie Smith fight. Jesus, it would
yeah,
have been
that
unreal.
that would have been a good crack. But yeah, like as you said, you never, like, we don't know what's going to happen. Obviously there's talk of Cyborg, this super fight with Kayla Harrison that we'll probably hear about for the next 2 years. It'll probably never happen. And you know, Cyborg's gone boxing as well, so you don't really know. Like, Cyborg has done it all in sports, so she can kind of do whatever once her contract's up.
100%, yeah.
Doing whatever she wants to do, go off and do it. But yeah, my God, if we could get that'd be something. If we could get a Leah McCourt, Sinead Kavanagh rematch for a title down the line, if that was a possibility, that'd be great. But yeah, excited to see Sinead back at the end of the day, and I think this is, as I said, an opportunity to just cross out a blemish on her record that probably shouldn't really, you know, well, a loss is a loss. It's a doctor stoppage, fair enough, but you know,
yep,
I thought she was winning that fight.
100%. We shall rattle through the next couple of fights here, as we are getting a little bit tight for time. Karl McNally back in the cage, or KSW cage, KSW 77. That event goes down in December.
That's a big fight because it's the Kaladov and Pujanowski card. So it's,
yeah.
he's in a big spot there.
Yeah, great for him to be on that card and to get that exposure. And yeah, that's going to be something to write home about as well. Seán O'Bannon will go back into rematch Kerry Isom at Cage Legacy for the main event. That has since been announced since our last episode. Tight for time now. We'll definitely talk about that fight and the whole Cage Legacy event on our next show for sure. We'll go into great detail on that. Dylan Tuke returns to action on Saturday, November the 12th. This is not the Ivanovic fight. This is an event at Budo over in England. He'll take on Estabelli Amato. So yeah, he'll be doing that. So he'll be fighting 2 times in quick succession over the next month. So good to see Dylan back in there and competing. Danny McCormac has been announced since for Invicta FC. She has signed a multi-fight deal. She will take part as a backup fighter and will fight Maria Mazar on Wednesday the 16th of November. That's midweek fight on a Wednesday. She was previously scheduled to take on Fatima Klein. She'll go in against Mazar. That will kind of serve as a backup fight for the strawweight tournament that is set to go down at Invicta 50. And yeah, it's good to see Danny in the mix.
That Mazar fought Zhang Wei Li. She got finished by her in the first round, but still.
Nice.
Like, yeah. It'll be interesting to see how Danny matches up with her, and good to see Danny kind of in there. She can throw herself right in the mix in the title picture almost immediately. With, I'm sure, you know, the previously mentioned Seán O'Bannon will be eagerly watching that.
This is gonna get fucking great crack, lads.
Potential to get spicy in the strawberry.
I think we're heading towards Irish violence here.
Andy will be frothing at the mouth if that happens, so you will. But yeah, moving on. D. Begley goes in there against Martiza Sanchez on Combache. I know that fight has been confirmed. News will probably come out earlier in the week about that fight. And last but not least, Stephen Costello is going back in there at Centurion FC to take on Umar Karimov on November 16th as well, on Wednesday. Same day as Danny McCormac. And Stephen's been looking really well lately, you know, going in and picking up some solid wins there over in Centurion, and he looks to win his third on the bounce over there. So I'm excited to see him in action and to see if he can progress in that.
Fighting a 3-0 guy as well, like, it's a solid step up in competition. So yeah,
100%. And that wraps up another one, guys. It was another action-filled, opinionated, fun podcast again. I guess, you know, we came off a really good, wholesome moment this weekend, really, with Paul Hughes lifting the Cage Warriors title up to prove that he is the undisputed king on Cage Warriors, and we're very excited to see his progression as he moves towards the UFC rankings. It'll be great and exciting for us to see. Thanks to Max Lally for joining us today and sharing about his comeback from injury and his next fights and how he foresees his future. It's always great to catch up with Max, and we're excited to see him back in action. Thanks to Andy, thanks to Caoilte for joining me once more. We will be back again in 2 weeks.
Thanks to Ian.
All the action.
Thanks to Ian. Ian never gets thanked. Thanks to Ian.
Thanks to myself. Yeah, it's just like real weird thanking myself.
Ungrateful prick. So yeah.
You should start with thanks to me. Just say
thanks to myself.
Thanks to me.
Everybody
couldn't have done it without myself.
Yeah. But
and you Paul Hughes, fair fucks to him. My God, what a performance!
It's all about Paul Hughes this episode. Thanks to the lads, thanks to everybody for listening in. Obviously, we'd be nothing without our listeners, without our viewers, without the support that we get from everybody each and every week. Please continue to do that. Hit us up on YouTube and all of the podcast networks. Give us a like, give us a rating. Give us.
Don't forget to smash that like button, guys.
Smash it. We appreciate the support. We're doing it for everybody, for the fighters, for the fans, and we love doing it. We'll continue to do it. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time. Once, like I said, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. Support us. Support Irish MMA. We'll talk to you all again soon. Goodbye, good luck, and God bless. See us out there, Caoilte.
Marscanos, long go fall.
Ooh, that was a